Good evening. Right now, Metro Police are desperately searching for the person or people responsible for killing a man and a woman.
And I got a male down in the middle of the street.
Breaking news now, a triple shooting leaves 2 dead.
Never expect for somebody to tell you your loved one was murdered.
This Labor Day will mark 42 years that have haunted the St. Cloud family.
30 years. 30 years this family has waited for answers.
A couple months go by, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you really start to struggle with the idea that the case might not get solved and that somebody might get away with murder.
It's very unfortunate that we have any cold cases at all, and certainly unfortunate that we have as many as we do. And that's why Bryan's work and the work of Project Cold Case is so important.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Ryan Backman, founder and executive director of Project Cold Case, and Katie Jeffries is joining us again this week. First Coast News.
Yep.
Anchor, reporter, Emmy nominee for your Unsolved series.
Yeah.
Just found that out, right?
I'm so excited. We found that out on Monday that the series got an Emmy nomination. The awards are in December, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But that's really cool to me because all the effort that goes into those segments,
yeah,
all of the good that comes from them, the families, how much they appreciate them, and then to know that all that hard work is acknowledged in your industry.
It's a good feeling.
I was looking at some of the other nominees, and they all seem to have this kind of criminal field. Like
crime is a big category.
yeah. But so the entire series is nominated, right?
It is. Well, it's the 1 hour special we did in May.
Okay.
So we submitted that, and it's that 1 hour special in May.
Great. Well, we definitely will have our fingers crossed, and hopefully in December that series will.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Be Emmy winning.
You'll hear that on every promo.
Yeah. Absolutely. But congratulations to you and Jeff on
you.
All the hard work and putting that together. We're excited and very hopeful for a win.
Yeah, me too.
So today we're going to talk about Bryan Wrigley's case, and this is an old one for 2
this
years.
Is 2017. I think we did this one.
And the case was 2011. You did a segment in 2017 that we'll watch here in a minute, but just the background. Bryan Wrigley was 23 years old. He was attending school in St.
Augustine University.
And he was an avid cyclist. And he was out for an afternoon ride when he was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver. So now we're over 8 years. And the segment, was 2 years ago, is talk about a 6-year-old case.
Right.
It's now over 8 years old. There's a lot of information on this case that the public can help with.
There is. There's a good description of the vehicle, of the person, and that was, I think, one of the frustrations with this. There is a lot of identifying information in it for it to be unsolved for this long.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's watch your segment, and then we'll talk a little bit about that information and what people can do to hopefully help resolve this one.
From the studios of NBC 12 and ABC 25, this is First Coast News at 11.
Good evening. First tonight at 11, he was hit while riding his bike and left on the side of the road to die. We're talking about 23-year-old Bryan Wrigley, who was an avid cyclist.
6 years later, the person who hit him has still not been captured. Katie Jeffries has more on what deputies are asking from you to help solve this cold case.
Just 2 lanes, a quiet stretch of road, often only filled with just local traffic along County Road 214 in St. Augustine. But on the side sits a reminder that a young life ended here.
And I want him to see. I want him to see my son's name and see what he did.
The ongoing nightmare for Bryan Wrigley's mother began on April 13th, 2011.
It was on a Wednesday night, and that's when my life changed forever.
On patrol that day was Detective Jose Jimenez with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office.
We received a 911 call reporting of a body in a ditch.
Initially, he thought it might be a homicide, but this is what he saw when he arrived at the scene. Bike parts all over the road, a truck's bumper nearby.
Just looking at the scene, you can tell that it was a hit-and-run traffic crash.
Detective Jimenez believes the vehicle was traveling westbound and Bryan was traveling eastbound on County Road 214.
Closest to the edge of the road, the vehicle actually swerved into him.
And notice what isn't in these photos. No skid marks, nothing indicating the driver stopped or even slowed down after hitting Bryan. The bumper and the vehicle parts left on the scene indicate Bryan was hit by a 2001 to 2003 blue Ford Ranger pickup truck extended cab with fog lights and a two-tone bumper, the bottom piece black and the top piece silver. After the story hit the news that night, a crucial witness came forward. Deputy J.D. McGinnis spoke to a man that had been working on a house nearby.
He saw a blue Ford Ranger. He said that he saw bicycle parts stuck to the front of the blue Ford Ranger.
And he gave deputies this composite sketch of a male driver.
He said he yelled out to the driver. The driver ran the stop sign and made a left turn and continued south.
As detectives continued to search for the truck and driver, Mandy Wrigley and her family were in shock. How could Bryan's life end so suddenly on the side of the road? Bryan and his twin brother Kevin were born in December of 1987 in their home state of South Carolina.
And I would sit there with both of them, and this is truly, I would just look at them and I would just thank God for these beautiful little boys.
Both smart and athletic young men, involved in helping with Special Olympics and played football. Kevin decided to pursue a career in law enforcement, while Bryan graduated from the top of his class at Newberry College, then came to the University of St. Augustine to study health sciences and become a doctor of physical therapy. He was also an avid cyclist, practicing daily and involved in competitions. Mandy says he had a heart for people, but he was humble about his volunteering.
He didn't want you to know. That's the reason if you ask him anything, what he was doing or where he'd been, well, somewhere over the rainbow.
And that is why his memorial bike is covered in rainbow ribbons. Being at this spot isn't easy for her. This is the first time she has been back to visit it in 3 years. But she wants the person that hit Bryan to see this memorial every day. And someday she wants to ask him why he didn't stop.
Would you want to, know that your child laid here and died alone? I mean, that's what I live with.
And over the years, Detective Jimenez and Deputy McGinnis have grown close to Mandy Wrigley and her family, hoping that one day they will be able to bring her justice.
I may not have known him in life, but I've gotten to know him. I just want to be able to bring answers to his mom.
So deputies have a specific request in this cold case. They say the damage done to the truck was extensive, so it would have had to have been fixed. If in April of 2011 you were a mechanic, a scrapyard owner, or even just helped a friend repair a 2001 to 2003 blue Ford Ranger pickup with an extended cab and fog lights and a two-tone bumper, they want to hear from you. Also, take a good look at this composite sketch. If you recognize that person or you have any information, you're asked to call the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. Or you can remain anonymous. Call Crime Stoppers 1-888-277-TIPS. There is a reward of up to $10,000 in this case.
That was another long one.
Yeah.
It was like 4 minutes, 4+ minutes on that segment. And, the things that stuck out to me were that the driver turned into him.
Right, that he swerved into him.
Swerved into him.
Didn't stop.
And then there was no skid marks, no indication that he slowed, stopped, braked. He just ran him over, like head on, and
left him. And that's, like Mandy said, she just wants to ask him, why didn't you stop?
Yeah, and Mandy drove all the way down here, Bryan's mom,
do that interview.
South Carolina to do that interview. She's constantly active, on social media and trying to get. I think she's watching too. Hi, Mandy. She's always proactive in trying to get answers. Hit and runs are really difficult cases,
right.
Especially kind of the longer they go, because you think like somebody's going to recognize the car early, right away, and then if they don't, then how do you solve a hit and run that has gone 8 years now? Well, the sheriff's office mentioned it, 2 years ago during the interview, and we'll mention it again today. Somebody knows who drove that.
There was
that truck.
Damage to that truck, so either somebody fixed it, somebody sold it, somebody got rid of it. Like somebody knows what happened to that truck.
Somebody knows, somebody that was driving a 2001 to 2003 blue Ford Ranger extended cab. Two-tone bumper at that time.
Mm-hmm. That
and
suddenly
then got
had
rid
front
of
end
it.
damage.
Yeah, it either had front end damage or got rid of it or painted it or it, locked it in his garage and never to be seen again. And that's how a hit and run case gets solved.
Right.
Is somebody needs to come forward with that information. And I don't care if it's anonymous through Crime Stoppers, but just come through and say, so-and-so had a blue Ford Ranger back then, and I never saw it again. I knew he drove it in that area around that time. Let the investigators do their job and try to identify whether that is the truck that was involved. But there has to be somebody that knows what happened.
And it's local. You go to that road, that's a local road. You're not going to really have people, from out of town or trying to go somewhere. It's a local's kind of road.
Right.
So somebody from that area was likely who did it.
The eyewitness that sees the bike parts stuck to the front of the truck and sees the person is able to give enough of a description that they can create
the sketch.
This composite. It's impossible to me that people out there don't know somebody that looks like that happened to drive that truck during that time. And then something, it's, you don't have to be a detective, to put those things together and do the right thing, which is call Crime Stoppers or call the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office and tell them who that was.
Out of all the cases that I've covered, too, I feel like this one is one of the ones that had the most leads to it that we could put on air to help, because sometimes it's you tell the case and it's just if you know something, call authorities. But with this one, it's okay. Do you recognize the truck? Do you recognize the person? Like, there's actually a lot of leads that people can share. They can ask about. They could let authorities know about.
Well, because you have to think. This guy probably had a job somewhere. He's putting gas in his truck.
It's a nice truck, paying for it.
Does he show up? His neighbors. Does this guy start parking in the garage? Does all of a sudden his truck's not in his normal parking spot? Like, any one of those things could be, is enough to call
attention to it.
Yeah, and call the sheriff's office. And Mandy there's a $5,000 reward through Crime Stoppers, but then Mandy says the family will match that $5,000 to make a $10,000 reward.
And Crime Stoppers is anonymous, so if it's your neighbor and you don't want to create tension by turning in maybe your neighbor's child, your neighbor's kid or something, you can call and be anonymous. Then the authorities can take their steps, what needs to be done, and then you can get the reward money, and literally no one's the wiser.
And that Crime Stoppers tip number will work, because we talked to Wiley about it. But the actual, it's weird, St. Johns County is just south of here, but they have a Northeast Florida Crime Stoppers, and that number is 888-277-TIPS. But Wiley assured us that you can call any Crime Stoppers number and provide that information. They will make sure that it gets to the appropriate agency. But yeah, there's a $5,000 reward through the Northeast Florida Crime Stoppers, and then the family, Bryan Wrigley's family, has said they would match that and throw in another $5,000. So again, whether you're a neighbor, a coworker, a friend, the mechanic, the owner of the scrap metal place, whatever that is that you have to get involved with this. It's been 8 years.
And you'd think somebody would remember this. I mean, there were bicycle parts in the front of the car. If you're a mechanic, I'm sure that had to raise some suspicions in your mind about what occurred.
Yeah.
So do the right thing.
This case got a good bit of publicity, and Mandy has done a good job. There's been billboards.
Right. Yeah.
This story has been in the newspaper. It's been on the news. There has been plenty of publicity that you really have to have your head in the sand to not know that somebody's being sought after. And if you have that information and you just think that whoever did this is one day gonna grow a conscience and come forward, it's not looking like that. You know, it looks like we're going to need somebody from the community that happens to know something to actually come forward, and whether it's through Crime Stoppers or through the sheriff's office itself. That sheriff's office, the general number there is 904-824-8304. There's one at the billboard. You know, they know what kind of truck it was from the parts that were left behind at the scene, and the eyewitness. You know,
it's so I can understand why it'd be so frustrating, because I feel like you have so many things there to go off of. You just need that one last little piece to lead you to the right person.
Absolutely. And you know, another thing that stuck out to me watching your segment, it was the commitment by the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office investigators. They talked about the bond they had created with Bryan's family up to that point, how much they want to
This was the first
provide her
case they wanted to showcase.
Yeah, yeah. They want to give her those answers, Mandy, those answers, and give the family justice. And they still, so over the weekend we promoted that we were going to be doing this today on our social media page. And part of that was, we had a typo in there, which happens. We're humans. We're trying to get that stuff out. We didn't catch it, and the sergeant of major crimes, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, reached out to me in a Facebook message and said, "Hey Ryan, thanks so much. I'm so glad that you guys are going to show this story again. By the way, you got the wrong year in there. You know, can you update that? Can you fix the year?" And he just was very appreciative that we were going to be talking about this again. It's been 2 years since we've talked about it. You know, there's somebody, whoever that is out there, is still out there, and they have the information. And the only way we're going to reach them is to keep putting this information out there for them. So hopefully this is the time, and that's what I told the sergeant. I said, you know, well, maybe this will be the time that somebody sees it and finally comes forward. We know that Bryan's mom, Mandy, she's not doing real well, I guess, right now, and she's having some struggles.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, which we hate to hear, but we know the stress, you know, being a survivor of an unsolved homicide, what it does to people. I mean, believe it or not, I didn't have any of this gray hair, you know, before my dad was killed. You know, I may be a little bit of it, but not much. I was looking at pictures the other day. So, you know, it does things to your body. It does things to you emotionally and physically. And somebody out there can actually stop that. You know, somebody out there can come forward and help.
And Bryan had a twin brother, Kevin.
Yeah.
When I was talking to Mandy, I just thought it was so sweet listening to her talk about, you know, holding both of her sons. And watching them grow up, and now you only have one son, but the other one was taken from you in this, and you know, it's hard to even celebrate Kevin's birthday.
Well, yeah, it's the same
Bryan's
day.
Gone. Yeah. It's the same day. It's, you know, it's just
They're
that
twins.
ongoing.
It's, how do you celebrate? You know, and I think Kevin went on into law enforcement
to
some degree
in South Carolina, I think.
Yeah, you know. Again, just the impact of this, the far-reaching impact. You know, you think this happens, and then eventually everybody gets over it or moves on or it goes away. The pain, you know, we're here to tell you that that's just not how it works. So these families are still struggling, and they really, you know, when you're affected by this, when somebody you love is taken in this kind of manner, you really are helpless. You know, you have no control over anything. The investigation, the person coming forward, you know, an arrest, a prosecution. You're just told you have to sit and wait on everybody else to do something. And really the only things you can do is reach out to the media and put up billboards and those kinds of things.
Try
and then
to
when
keep his name out there.
Yeah, and you've been doing that for 8 years. It's exhausting. You know, it's tiring, and you know you can't give up. But it just starts to wear on you, and you really need, you know, you're again in another position where you're helpless, and you need somebody else to step up. And in this case, that's the person with information on this case.
And I know you feel strongly about it, and I do too. Somebody out there definitely knows. I'd even venture to guess more than one person.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because you can't just hide that kind of evidence. You know, that truck, somebody saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, there has been a number of situations, hit and run cases, where somebody's had to come forward years later, but it's typically, again, it's the mechanic, it's the neighbor, it's somebody that does remember all of a sudden this guy's truck was wrecked.
Yeah, it's usually a light bulb goes off, like, I did notice so-and-so's truck. I didn't see it again after that point.
Right.
Bryan now has a niece.
Yeah, so Mandy's telling us, Bryan has a niece that he, will never get to meet, and she will never get to meet him. And, that always sticks with me, because I didn't have any kids when my dad was around, and now I do, and he never got to meet them. And, robbing this little girl of the opportunity to meet her uncle, have those memories, obviously rob them of opportunities to have cousins, and Bryan have kids and a family of his own. Those are that's the ripple. You know what I mean? It's not just a sad mom, a grieving mom. There's a ripple that just keeps going and impacting lives.
And everything he could have been, because he wanted to either be a pediatrician or he wanted to work, I think, in maybe a geriatric field, but something where he was going to help other people. So you lost that opportunity to see what he was going to become.
Exactly. And it was all the talk about what a good person that he would do all this volunteering and all helping all these people, and never for recognition. Just did it because it was something that was important to him for whatever reason.
Right.
I think it was Special Olympics. He did a lot of.
He tutored.
He did tutoring, and he, I know that Mandy made a comment about, how at the funeral there was all these people that he had touched their lives, and she didn't know that he had touched their lives, and they came to the funeral and shared that with him, and it just was really, really a powerful testament to who he is and the type of person he was. And
he was very humble.
Yeah, he was very humble. And I just got a text message from somebody saying, not just the repairs, maybe maybe this person went and got a new bumper at the junkyard and put on, but may have painted the truck, you know what I mean, or done something that would alter the appearance. So maybe you didn't catch the actual damage, but maybe you knew somebody that had a blue Ford Ranger pickup truck, and then the next time you saw them, a month or 2 or 3 or 4 months later, they had a red Ford Ranger pickup truck. And
even if you aren't sure, like, I don't want to turn this person in, and then maybe they're innocent, I'd say let police figure that out, but also trust your gut. If there's something telling you, like, maybe I should call, you probably should call. You should call, because there can't be, this was 2011, and we're talking about a 2001 to 2003 truck. So there probably wasn't that many of them around at the time.
You know what I mean? Around at the time. And
being driven by a teenager.
Right. You've already narrowed the scope by the fact that they know the car. Maybe he borrowed the car from somebody who knows the situation, but it would be pretty easy for law enforcement to do a little bit of investigating and eliminate somebody. They're not going to arrest somebody just because they drove a Ford Ranger or owned a Ford Ranger, in 2001. They're going to have more information than that. Right. And but that's their job, and they're pretty good at it. So
and I want to emphasize, it doesn't seem like an accident. There were no skid marks. This person purposely swerved into Bryan.
I was doing some reading up on the story. We did a spotlight on it on Project Cold Case. I had rewatched your segment, and I was doing some other searches of news stories, and back at the time, there were some cyclist friends that kind of commented that their fear was like there's this
anger towards cyclists on the road.
And people will swerve, not intending to hit them, but intending to scare them, intending to, to cause them to fall over, and it's a thing.
Which is awful.
Is awful. And these, you have to remember that Bryan's coming one way and the truck is coming the other way. So it's head on. And this, again, you saw the road. You went out there to it. It was in the clip. This is a rural county road.
And there's nowhere for him to swerve, because it really is just like road and then ditch on either side, so there's nowhere for him to move to get out of the way.
So there really is, you know, you don't like to speculate, but there's a chance that this person thought they were being funny and trying to scare Bryan and hit him head on and killed him. You know, and then left. You know, that just makes my stomach turn. It just makes me sick. But there was no reason why that truck should have left his lane.
Right, and come into
again,
Bryan's
if
side.
there's anybody out there that thinks they were riding in the same lane and maybe he didn't see him or, you know, whatever, like they were heading towards each other and the truck crossed the lane to hit him. You know, so whether it was intentional or whether he was trying to scare them and then did it, or whether he was distracted, and whatever the reason was, you know, that's what Mandy wants to know.
And he didn't stop. At the end of the day, you know, God forbid we were in a car accident where you hit somebody. You would stop and see if they're okay, call 911. This person didn't do any of that.
Right.
You know.
Which obviously, and again, he's got bicycle parts sticking out of his truck, so it's not like he doesn't know what happened.
Right.
It's not like this wasn't all over the news when it happened, and then since then. So there's somebody out there that is still driving around that is capable of running someone over, hitting them head on, killing them, and then just going about their lives. You know, and if it's your neighbor or your sibling or, you know, somebody you know, I hope that you'll think about that and what that would be like if it was, you know, your loved one that had just been left in a ditch on a county road in Florida while he was just out bicycling.
So if you recognize that truck, or if you recognize the composite sketch, they thought the composite between 18 to 23 is what the detective told me. So a young person. But it was a blue Ford 2001 to 2003 with an extended cab, two-tone bumper, black on the bottom, silver on the top, fitted with fog lights at the time.
Yeah. That's the billboard, which has the composite and not the truck, but a lookalike truck. So we're begging on behalf of Bryan's family, you know, that if anybody has information, there's the number on that billboard too for Crime Stoppers. Like we said earlier, there's a $10,000 reward out there right now for information. So if you don't, you know, you feel like you can't turn somebody in because you're too close to them, you know,
you can do it anonymously.
Anonymously call in that tip and let the investigators do their job and do the legwork, and they'll find, you know, they'll be the ones that you know
can vet that and figure it out.
Can figure that out, and let's just remember that, you know, when actions have consequences, you know, if it was an accident and he was looking at his phone or something and crossed the center line and hit him, there's still consequences for those actions. You know, you don't get to just say, you know, nobody saw me, nobody caught me,
so I'll just keep going,
so I get away with it. You know, it's not fair to the rest of society that people can go around and do stuff like that. So if you have information, please come forward. If you don't have information but you are a compassionate human being, share this story. Get the information out there so that hopefully we can come across that person that is now maybe willing to come forward. You know, we talk about change in relationship. Maybe this individual was dating somebody back then. And
that they're
no
not
longer
anymore
together. You know, maybe they were friends with somebody they're no longer friends with. Worked with somebody they no longer work with. That's at this point, that's kind of what we're looking for, and I think that's what the sheriff's office is looking for. So help us get that information out there to as many people as possible so that we can try to find them.
Yeah, I think there's definitely hope, because somebody's going to recognize that truck, or at least already knows who it is. It's just a matter of coming forward.
Exactly. Katie, thanks for joining us again today.
Good to be here.
And bringing back these stories with us. I think it's okay to say you're currently working on.
They should start, I think, next Wednesday might be our first Unsolved of this series, and then there'll be every Wednesday the following 4 Wednesdays.
That's awesome news. We will certainly promote those through our social media, and we'll share them once they're available online, so that those of you that are not local that enjoy these programs can get a chance to watch them. And then at some point we'll come back and we'll talk about those at a later date. Anything else going on you want to add?
No, that's it at the moment. Just excited about Unsolved's Emmy nomination.
That's awesome.
I'm really excited that means more people will get a chance to see it, and hopefully people will branch out and start doing Unsolved type series maybe in their communities too. So I'm excited to have more eyes on cold cases.
It's good stuff. Thank you, Katie. Check us out at projectcoldcase.org, and obviously our Facebook page you're watching now. We need your help sharing these stories, but we'll be back next week with another Facebook Live. Thanks a lot.